Meet our 4 beautiful ladies in the circle. Great talk, positive vibes, and the energy is unstoppable.
Give them, because we be giving favors. But we won't say too much.
Keep it ready, hands up, hands up.
Me and you for life, for life. If I die.
Join the hottest ladies in town on the brand new season of Lady Circle.
Lady Circle. The Ladies Circle shows Saturdays at 6 p.m. on TV3.
Brought to you by Sanitary Pad, MTN,
Betway, Nivea.
What on? Flamingo paint, superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.
Well, hello, good evening. Welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from Manu Sabata, Desawe Kanda, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. I am Alfred Ocansey. Tonight, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, GRNMA, in the news again. They are signaling a possible reactivation of their suspended strike if a clear implementation plan for the conditions of service is not provided by July 10. That's the new date. We'll hear from them. Stay with us. Also, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, speaks on key matters, including the scandal surrounding the Ghana Embassy in Washington, D.C., and the inclusion of Ghana in a travel ban list by the United States. Also, we have an update on the COVID-19 cases recorded on the University of Ghana campus and what the containment plan is. Stay with us. As always, you're an integral part of the conversation. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Connect with us and let's get talking. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, GRNMA, has once again issued a firm ultimatum to government to either implement their conditions of service by the end of July or face possible industrial action. The renewed notice follows what the association describes as the unilateral suspension of a scheduled meeting involving government representatives, the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health, and the GRNMA. President of the association, Perpetual Furiampofu, addressed the media at a press conference in Accra.
Rescheduling of the meeting, in our view, is in bad faith, since it may further delay the implementation of the agreed items. We have, however, decided to give the committee the benefit of hindsight and still trust that their engagement with the Ministries of Health and Finance will be productive.
Parliament's Health Committee says it is committed to addressing the concerns of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. This follows the postponement of a meeting with the Health and Finance Ministers, originally scheduled for today to July 10, 2025, as both ministers are currently out of the country. Committee Chairman Dr. Market Nawane says they remain focused on supporting the welfare of nurses and midwives.
I want to use this opportunity to reassure the nurses that the Health Committee their own committee, and for that matter, Parliament, will continue to advocate for them. We are their representatives, and we represent them. We also represent the patients and all other citizens of Ghana.
The minority in Parliament has announced plans to summon the management of Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PURC, to justify the recently announced 2.45% increase in electricity tariffs effective July 1, 2025. The group says key economic indicators such as gas prices, the exchange rates, and inflation have remained relatively stable and therefore do not warrant any upward adjustment in electricity prices. Addressing the media, the ranking member on Parliament's Energy Committee, George Kwame Abuaje, described the tariff increment as unacceptable.
Exchange rate is going down. These are some of the factors. Exchange rate, the highest for this year was, I think, $15.527. Okay, that was the highest in this year. The lowest was 10.20. Currently, exchange rate is 10.30. So, why increasing?
The High Court has set July 3 to rule on a motion by lawyers of the embattled former director of National Signals Bureau, Kwabena Edubuahene, regarding the disclosure of all National Security Coordinators' operational accounts. Kwabena Edubuahene, his wife Angela Ije Boateng, and 2 others have been charged for allegedly stealing over 49 million cedis from the states. Lawyer of Kwabena Edubuahene, Samuel Atechia, spoke after the proceedings.
We have far processes that these processes are exculpatory of us. And the law says that whatever the evidence, the Attorney General should bring it to bear on the proceedings. The Attorney General is fighting of evidence which will aid fair trial. I was sorely disappointed. But we leave it to the judge to look at the processes we filed. The fact that the Attorney General didn't file an affidavit in opposition, the fact that the Attorney General has not even read the motion and still wanted to go on.
The Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Pokwajiman, has stressed the need for individuals and communities who suffer the consequences of drug addiction not to be neglected, as addressing substance use disorders requires compassion. She was speaking to mark International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Drug Trafficking in Accra.
A directive from the Honourable Minister for the Interior to operationalize the Substance Use Disorder Rehabilitation Fund, as provided in the Narcotics Control Commission Act, is a commendable move. Vulnerable communities are made to suffer and are sometimes forced to turn to criminal activities simply to survive. These activities are also contributing to deforestation, dumping of toxic waste, and chemical pollution.
As more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live as well on 3FM 92.7. Also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. And as always, probably brought to you by Flamingo Paint, simply superior. Sasso insecticide spray and coil, tum preco. Now, before getting to the issues this evening, there's some news that came through from the Minister of the Interior. In fact, we'll put it on the screen right now. Some good news for some people who would have a long holiday, but will certainly be at work. The general public is hereby informed that Tuesday, 1st July 2025 is a Republic Day, which is a holiday. However, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana, by executive instrument, in accordance with Section 2 of the Public Holidays and Commemorative Days Act 2021, Act 601, has declared Friday, the 4th of July 2025, as the public holiday. So the president, by this executive instrument, instead of we observing the holiday on the Tuesday, the 1st of July, the holiday will be on Friday, the 4th of July. You're going to have a long weekend next week. But we will be at work to inform you on everything that's happening on that day and beyond. So that's the information coming through from the Interior Ministry. That's for you to take note of that here on Ghana Tonight. But coming up next, a missed scheduled meeting now scheduled for July 10. It's expected to be a make-or-break meeting between the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association and the Select Committee of Parliament on Health. That's the position that the midwives and the nurse and midwives have taken. And earlier today, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association has once again issued a firm ultimatum to government to either implement their conditions of service by the end of July. But that's, in fact, there's a meeting on July 10. That's the rescheduled date we're doing. So other than that, we're going to have to face possible industrial action again. The renewed notice followed what the association described as the unilateral suspension of a scheduled meeting involving government representatives, the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health, and the GRNMA. There was a press conference earlier today addressed by the GRNMA President, Perpetual Furiampofo. We're going to get into that. But the Parliament Select Committee on Health also addressed the media in Parliament earlier today about this particular development, the postponement of this said meeting with the various representatives of government. I'm going to be joined by the General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association in a bit. But this is what Perpetual Furiampofo said earlier today. Take a look.
The rescheduling of the meeting, in our view, is in bad faith, since it may further delay the implementation of the agreed items. We have, however, decided to give the committee the benefit of hindsight and still trust that their engagement with the Ministries of Health and Finance will be productive. Demand the implementation of the 4 agreed items not later than July 2025. This is non-negotiable, and we shall advise ourselves if any attempt is made to further delay the implementation. We demand that these timelines are clearly captured and signed off at the 10th July 2025 meeting to avoid any ambiguity in the implementation schedule.
So they give a timeline to it. They say end of July, non-negotiable. They want this done. There was a meeting that was supposed to take place today that's been rescheduled to July 10. We'll be finding out for the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association why they say that this decision to postpone this meeting today was a unilateral decision. Why is that? And how was the July 10 date communicated to them? What exactly are they going to be talking about on July 10? What posture are they going into this meeting with? That's a conversation. Stay with us. But the chair of the Parliament Select Committee on Health, addressing the media earlier today, also indicated that they remain focused on supporting the welfare of nurses in this country. Take a look.
As we speak now, the demands of the nurses have been converted into monetary terms. And there's a need for a preliminary meeting between the Ministry of Health, the Health Committee, and the Ministry of Finance to discuss the outcome of the analysis. However, the Minister of Health and the Minister of Finance, they are unavoidably absent from the jurisdiction. The committee therefore thought it prudent to inform the Nurses Association of the above development. I want to use this opportunity to reassure the nurses that the Health Committee, their own committee, and for that matter, Parliament, will continue to advocate for them. We are their representatives, and we represent them. We also represent the patients and all other citizens of Ghana who will continue to work in our collective interests. I want to thank the Nurses Association for their understanding and cooperation. The next meeting has been rescheduled to the 10th of July 2025.
Well, that's the chair of the Parliament Select Committee on Health addressing the media, and that assurance they gave to the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. You recall, not too long ago, there were on weeks of strike that crippled the health delivery system in this country because of this conditions of service. That this document that was with this detail, part of this was in there, signed sometime in May 2024. Explanation has been given why it wasn't implemented between May 2024 and now. Apparently, there was an injunction on the implementation of this by another splinter group of nurses and midwives that led to the delay in the implementation, and the reason why this new administration, led by the president, John Dramani Mahama, would have to carry the cross of this conditions of service signed last year in May 2024. And this is it. The book and research allowance in there from what we got to know, and then also the uniform allowance, and then we have the fuel allowance as well, non-basic allowance that was put in there, and the on-call facilitation allowance, the rural incentive allowance, and then also 13-month, and a number of things that we're putting there, and you have in there, we're going to put it on the screen right now, the continuous professional development support, the annual professional license renewal fees required for continuous professional development, and so on, that were put in there. This is just a fraction of the full details of this collective agreement, that document that was signed in May last year. That the non-implementation of this was the trigger for that strike a few weeks ago. Now, Dr. David Tinkranchum is the General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, joining us on Zoom right now. Mr. Chum, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, my brother, and good evening to your viewers.
Now, we understand the reason why this meeting that was scheduled between yourselves, Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, and the Health Committee and some other government representatives was postponed because the Health Minister and the Finance Minister were out of the jurisdiction, or are out of the jurisdiction. And you say that this postponement is unfortunate. Were you not communicated to prior to today the absence of these key persons for this meeting?
All right. Thank you, Alfred. Yes, we have every reason to describe this as unfortunate because the risk settling was unilateral and it was done without recourse to the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. And the circumstances surrounding the notification itself was quite something that doesn't sit well with us. Indeed, the president received a message, a text message, a WhatsApp message actually, from, I think, the chairman of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health yesterday morning with a letter addressed to the Minister for Health. And when the president inquired whether that letter was meant for her, the chairman said that, well, the content is the same, just that that particular letter was addressed to the Minister for Health and ours is on the way coming. So it was quite some way until in the somewhere around the evening, because we were having a crunch National Council meeting. So around 4 p.m., our letter was sent to us. And we think that, if matters of this nature, and you see, we agreed to attend upon the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health out of courtesy and out of respect, because they are the people representative. And if they have decided to show leadership, all right, we ought to reciprocate it in a manner that meant that there are people that we could trust. Mm-hmm. And if from the day we met up to yesterday, and the meeting was supposed to be held today, and unfortunately, we have even come to discover, later, that even the minority members of the committee were not aware that the meeting had been postponed. So we find all these things. Remember the last time you hosted me, I think I was in Finland, and I used a certain description that I believe that this intervention will not lead to something else. And our fears are just here.
Well, but you've just gotten some assurances from the chair of the committee, Select Committee on Health. I just played that. He says there's no doubt that you're committed to your welfare and that this meeting that has been rescheduled to July 10 would happen for your issues to be addressed. Reassuring enough, you would say?
We are, optimistically pessimistic. Do you understand? Because
what do you mean by optimistic, pessimistic?
Absolutely. I mean, looking at the circumstances that surround the way the postponement took place, I mean, doesn't give us that kind of confidence to be able to move forward. But of course, there is a positive outlook. But as I said, obviously, there is a potential pitfall. And looking at how the postponement went doesn't really give us that kind of energy and the vibe to be able to continue on this conversation. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And as it was re-echoed in our press conference, we leave everything up to the 10th, and we'll take it up from there.
I see. So what posture are you going into this meeting on the 10th of July with? On the back of what you have just said, that you've lost steam in even wanting to engage.
I think it was well articulated in our press conference. The president of the express opinion, or of course the National Council was the express opinion, that we are not going to allow anybody to water down our agreed position. I won't even call it a demand. It's no longer a demand because it's not a brisk request. These are signed collective agreements, and I may not even term it as demand. So I believe that we'll go in well composed, as usual, as professionals as we are, and listen to whatever they have for us. But obviously, we will not countenance any form of watering down of the demands, or if you like, the request that was placed before them.
You're still going in with that position that no renegotiation, all you're looking for is implementation. That's it. No long talk.
Absolutely. I've told you that our condition of service is not subject for renegotiation, and that is our position. And there are no shiftings as far as that position is concerned. We cannot negotiate a collective agreement. You can only renegotiate after you have implemented the collective agreement. Okay, there are provisions in the collective agreement that stipulates that 1 year into the implementation of the condition of service, each party can come for something we call a wage opener. All right. So if there are aspects of the condition that it doesn't settle well with you, or you are not very comfortable with it, you can opt out, or you can bring it up and say that, we want a renegotiation on this aspect. But that is after 1 year into the implementation.
But that's
of course,
interesting.
the condition of service is also a living document and expires in 2 years. And we're already 1.5 years into 1 year into the document.
Yeah.
So I think that we can't renegotiate anything that we have already negotiated. We could only be amenable to the process of implementation. And that is exactly what transpired the last time we met.
Well, that's an interesting clause that you refer to, because if you're saying that after the implementation starts, then 1 year into the implementation, you can come back and say, okay, well, book and research allowance is too much, so, come down a bit. Does the clause give way for the renegotiation of these conditions or the agreement to your disadvantage? If it doesn't,
not at all.
Yes, certainly. So if it doesn't, I'm coming. If it doesn't, if the agreement has already started in terms of implementation, then it cannot be renegotiated to your disadvantage in terms of reducing some of the things that are already in motion, is it not?
Absolutely, and that is why we made it clear from the beginning, from the onset, that our condition of service is not subject for renegotiation. However, what that clause seeks to do is to grant a wage opener, and more often than not, of course, we all know that some of the underpinnings of the single spine salary structure, nobody should be made worse off. So if I've gotten a fuel allowance of 1,000 Ghana cedis, you cannot renegotiate it to my detriment. I hope you understand. They can only enhance it. So the wage opener clause is actually there to enhance some of the allowances that perhaps were not well negotiated. And those are our positions. Because I remember when after the negotiations, we were lambasted by some of these separatists that we didn't do anything, we didn't do a good job. So we were actually contemplating that if the implementation had taken place last year, as we anticipated, then in 2025 we would have, ignited the clause of the wage opener. So it cannot be renegotiated to our detriment. That is unacceptable. But as I said, because one of the basic fundamental underpinnings of the single smile pay policy is not to make anybody worse off. And the only way you can make somebody worse off is to renegotiate an aspect that has already been agreed upon.
But also, I'm sure you've heard this, that it is hinged on the government's ability to pay, isn't it? I mean, that's a critical component of the conversation, isn't it? If government says, I have to have the ability to pay what you are asking for.
Senior Alfred, if we prioritize the health needs of the good people of Ghana and those who claim to be economists, the health of a nation determines the worth of that nation, is that not, or the worth of the nation? So, you see, if people think that they are good economists, then they should look at things properly. Look, the 10 days that we decided to step aside, can we quantify the economic loss of to our various hospitals? Okay, in 2020, when we went on strike, we conducted a research into the impact of necessary midwife strike, and it is published in a peer-reviewed journal. I mean, I led that research as the chairman of the Education Research Committee. If you check +1 right now, you can find it. It was published in 2020. Yeah, it is there. You understand the impact of necessary midwife strike. So that is more often than I always say that if people will be minded, okay, and avert their minds to the demands of necessary midwives, we don't have to even mention the word strike. They understand, because it's very detrimental and life is so precious. And once you lose it, you can't have it. But we can also sit down for people to treat us with disdain and disrespect. Do you see? And get us impoverished. The necessary midwives are impoverished by virtue of the fact that because when we step aside, people will die and we are slapped in the face all the time. Why do you have to think about money? As if we don't go to the same market with every Ghanaian.
Well, so July 10 is a date to watch. And the posture you say you are going into this meeting with is no renegotiation, only implementation. And you want to know when implementation will begin. That's it.
Absolutely. We have said that the implementation must start in July. You know, the 4 things that we agreed upon with the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health, we are saying that should be implemented in July. However, we are amenable to the fact that the remaining 4 could be kicked in January 2026. That's we are very much comfortable with that. I mean, even our council were not too happy about that. We needed to compromise on those. So if we have been able to agree that only 4, and let me tell you, these 4, it doesn't go to everybody. Okay, so
which 4 are those? Which 4 are those?
Okay, I mean, it's already out. I mean, we talked about the fuel allowance. Okay, the fuel allowance goes to only about 5% of the total nursing and midwifery workforce. Okay, because it goes to principal nursing and midwifery officers and above. And they are very few. They are about how many? About 5,000 people out of 26,000. So that is a peanut. Okay. Number 2, the uniform allowance, for instance, it was 400 Ghana cedis, and it moved to 1,000 Ghana cedis. The difference is 600 Ghana cedis. Okay, so if you compute 600 Ghana cedis by 126,000, how much is that? So I was at sea.
But that'll be quite some money, is it not? I mean,
what kind of money? I mean,
400 cedis to 1,000, the difference of 600. I mean, it depends on which side of the pendulum you belong.
So basically, what I want to say is that the current condition of service that we are talking about is being enjoyed by all health workers. So that why is it that when it comes to nurse and midwife, then we begin to, think and devise all manner of excuses and say that to break the economy. Look, we are very much aware that this will not break the economy. It's about priority, okay? If people think that our contribution in the health continuum is important, then they will prioritize our condition of service over other things. Are we not here that extra share is going to pay and the rest of it? Why is extra share more important than the condition of service of nurses and midwives? Do you understand what I'm saying? So, Alfred, I think that we need to respect nurses and midwives in this country and recognize the contribution of nursing and midwifery care in the health continuum.
Right.
Look, if you come to the health sector, you
round it up for me. Yeah.
We 10 days where the hospitals were virtually collapsing. because our practice strands across several skill mix in the hospital. So without nurses and midwives, nothing works. And people don't see this. Okay, when you come to the hospital, all the monies that are generated in the hospital, most of it is as a result of midwifery and nursing care or nursing services.
Okay.
All right. The drugs that are given at the pharmacy is not served by nurses and midwives to patients. So if we don't serve the drugs to patients, won't they stay on those shelves and expire? So they need to really recognize and quantify the midwifery and nursing services within the health continuum so that they can remunerate us accordingly.
Well, July 10, we will be in Parliament or where you would have this meeting, and we'll definitely let people know what the outcome of that meeting will be. But I thank you. I thank you very much for joining us. That's Dr. David Tinkran Chum. Is the General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. July 10, we're counting out to that particular date to see how things play out. But this is Ghana Tonight. Coming up, threats of a travel ban, deportations, and matters of corruption at the Ghana Embassy in Washington, D.C. At the top of the agenda during the press conference earlier today by the Foreign Affairs Minister, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, and so on matters of concern to many people who have seen things playing out. The Foreign Affairs Minister, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, says engagements have intensified between Ghana and the U.S. government to ensure Ghana is taking off the list of some 36 countries to be banned from entering the United States. Yeah, according to the minister, some Ghanaian citizens have overstayed their visa limits, prompting the U.S. government to place Ghana on that list. Take a look.
U.S. authorities have now formally brought to our attention, so it is no longer a leaked report. They inform us that 10 days ago, they were informed by the White House on the plans to take an expanded view of the President Trump bans. The ban, according to U.S. officials, will affect countries not complying with some 12 items, a criteria that they have outlined. Those 12 items, as they have formally communicated to us, they are varying. They cut across a wide array of matters of concern to U.S. authorities, including terrorism, countries that fund terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism. It includes countries that have become havens for violent extremists to operate. It's on their list. Then they are also talking about countries not cooperating with the ongoing deportations that the Trump administration is carrying out. Then there are issues to do with overstays. So countries that have a high rate of overstays, those who receive US visas for specific periods and abuse the immigration laws of the United States, where they do not comply with the terms of their visa. So you have a 3-month visa, you are allowed to stay for 3 months or 6 months, pay your visa, but then you overstay. The US officials have communicated to us that the challenge we face really relates to overstays, particularly with students, the students who we have been sending abroad. So students who go on government scholarship and also students who on their own apply to study in the United States of America. They have formally communicated to us that 21% is the default rate. 21% of students who have completed their courses have refused to return, according to US data. They have told us that the allowance, they will permit countries doing below 15%. But if you are doing above 15%, then you will be flagged for further action. The engagements, I must say, are going well.
Well, Samuel Okudzeto-Blakwa says the engagements are going well, and we are on this list of countries to be affected by Donald Trump's travel ban because predominantly students who are studying, Ghanaian students studying in the United States, have overstayed their visa. These are the countries on that list. As Angola, Antigua, Barbuda, Benin, Bhutan, Burkina Faso, Cambodia, Cameroon, Cape Verde, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Djibouti, the Dominica, Ethiopia, Egypt, Gabon, Gambia, unfortunately Ghana, in the Ivory Coast, Kyrgyzstan, Liberia, Malawi, Mauritania, Nigeria is there as well, and you have St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, Sao Tome and Principe, Senegal, South Sudan, it goes on and on, Syria, Tanzania, Tonga is there, there's Tuvalu, Uganda, Vanuatu, Zambia, Zimbabwe, you have it in there. Unfortunately, Ghana is on this list, and an enviable ranking as we have in there. And one man who understands the workings of this situation that we find ourselves in, and also a former president of the Ghanaian community in Ohio's Columbus. And he has lectured in the United States for over 20 years. He's the dean of the academic affairs, the dean of the business school, I beg your pardon, the Academic City University. He's joining us on Zoom right now, Professor Enoch Enchi. Prof, good evening. Thank you for joining us. If you can unmute for me, please. Prof, if you can unmute for me.
Yes, greetings to all our listeners everywhere in the world, Alfred.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us. I mean, having lectured in the United States for this long and knowing how all of this works, what should the engagement be with the United States like, so as to achieve the optimum objective of getting us off this list of countries to be possibly affected by a ban by the U.S. government from Ghanaians entering into the United States, because especially students have overstayed their visas? Prof.
Thank you very much. I think that immigration is a very worrying issue for most Africans. If you look at the list, out of the possible 36 countries that are going to be banned, fully or partially, 26 are in Africa. That means only 28 would not be banned. And that is a very worrying situation. We have a lot of our citizens out there in America. One city can have about 40,000. So Columbus, Cincinnati, Worcester, Chicago, New York, New Jersey. We have a lot of Ghanaians out there. Most of them are students. Some travel and overstay their visa because they want to stay. Some want to marry and go through the green card system and then become citizens. So it's a very difficult situation for our citizens out there. But I think that immigration crackdown has been in motion since January that Trump took over. And Africans have become easy targets because most of our citizens out there don't want to come back home. I think what the Foreign Affairs Minister is doing is in the right direction. We should continue to engage the American government about our citizens. They are part of us. They are Ghanaians. And there's a reason why they are there. Some want to make economic gains. The secret is that immigrants are target workers. They don't want to stay in the country forever. They will come back home one day. But it's economic reasons why they are there. And if you look at the threshold, they are saying that we have 21% that have completed their courses as students, and they have refused to return back to Ghana. If it was lower, below 15%, then we wouldn't have been part of the list of the ban. But now 21%. And it's difficult to go and tell Kofi or Ahmad that you have to go so that the numbers will reduce, because everybody wants to stay. So I think that the Foreign Affairs Minister, as he said, we should continue to engage the Trump administration and then also talk to our citizens to see those who want to come genuinely home and those who want to stay, and the right way to stay out there.
But then there's this point you make about the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal immigrants. And then now we find ourselves in this web as well. How then do we navigate this path already with the established position of the administration as against what you're saying, that yes, these students, they are overstaying their visas because they are working and they want to make money. The administration doesn't care about that, right? That's why we're on this list.
Yes. But the reason why they are staying is that economically they want, some don't have jobs when they come back home. And it means that we also have to find a way of providing jobs for those who have finished school and they are coming back. One thing that I noticed when I was teaching in the U.S. Before moving to Ghana 3 years ago is that the Chinese citizens, they come to school, so grad programs, you have a lot of Chinese citizens. As soon as they finish, the next flight is there to pick them home. Now they have jobs. So they go, and the knowledge that you gain in America, come use it, let's compete with them. Because they know from history that when a nation reaches the apex of their power and wealth, another country takes over. So they come get the education of the West, and then they go back to their country, use the same knowledge to compete with them. But unfortunately, in our case, it's not like that. They finish school there, and we don't have any jobs back for them home. So they try to find a way to stay. And if you look at some of the menial jobs that our graduates there are doing, it's not good. So I would say that as we continue to engage the American government as to what to do with our citizens, because we can't leave them in the cold or in the sun, in the hot like that. What we have to do is to engage them and then talk to our citizens, because the Ghanaian association that I was president of, we know where every Ghanaian is in every city that we find ourselves. We talk to them when immigrants come. Some of the time they sleep at the Ghana Association President House, and we help them to transition or assimilate into the system. So what we can do is that we should engage the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the embassies should engage the Ghanaian associations, because we know how to bring out our citizens who don't want to come out for the fear of being deported, so that we talk to them. Those who want to come home genuinely, yes, they can walk through the process, and then we'll get a flight and bring them back home. Those who want to stay because they have married some other people and they are still working on their documentation, we should allow them to stay to finish the process. Because once you've married somebody, you go through the interview process and you're successful. Yes, you get a green card and you stay.
Okay, Prof, I want you to stay with me, because the Foreign Affairs Minister also commented on another thing. He's giving indications that all persons involved in the corrupt acts that led to the closure of Ghana's embassy in Washington are being investigated by the Economic and Organized Crime Office, including the former ambassador Hajia Alima Mahama. The minister is saying recent media interviews by the former ambassador seeking to justify the illegal acts of one Fred Kwarting will not be tolerated. He's also indicated that EOCO's investigations will bring all perpetrators to book. But before we hear from the minister, let's hear from Hajia Alima Mahama. She spoke to my colleague on 3FM 92.7, Black Rasta, in an interview just about a week ago on this matter. Take a look.
Initially, he was even a part owner, and later on he became sole with other people. He had his partners. I knew he was the owner. And like I said, I went and observed the work that he started in 2019 was doing very well. And when you go and something is going on well, you don't mess it up.
Yeah, you don't change a winning team.
You don't change a winning team. It was going on well. And I was having my peace. Ghana Embassy, everybody was saying that things were going on well. You go and change a team, and now their passports start messing up, or they have to come there in queues and all that. No, like what is happening now. No, I don't. They don't have to choose. That's what I said. You can do your self-addressed envelope. And when you are going to do your self-addressed envelope, you will go to either FedEx or UPS or the US postal system. You can choose to go to any of them. And then you will get a their envelopes. It will be FedEx envelope, just like courier service. And then they'll give you a label of your address. And you pay the right amount. They will charge you, you pay. Then now, you fill your visa form. Put that visa form, that you print out that visa form. You pay online. Our payments is online. You don't bring any check to the embassy.
So that's Hajia Alima Mahama there, the immediate past ambassador of Ghana to the United States. And she's also, according to Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, a subject of investigation by the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO. In that interview with Black Rasta, she says she had peace of mind when this system put in place by Fred Kwarteng was working at the embassy. Well, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa says EOCO is investigating this matter, and she and others will be called for questioning. Take a look.
That since all those decisive and drastic actions were carried out, and also following the parliamentary briefing that I conducted last week, the former ambassador has been making some statements and seeking to undermine the measures that we have carried out and peddling a lot of untruths about her conduct in this whole sordid affair. We have provided Parliament with a full report of the fact-finding mission. Perhaps the former ambassador will have preferred that, just as others refused to act for many, many years, even when this matter came to their attention, she will have preferred that we also look the other way and not take action. Her Excellency Haji Alima Mahama must know that this is a new era. It is a reset era. We do not condone corruption. We do not tolerate naked conflict of interest. And we will not look the other way. We will not become complicit. And we will not, by our dereliction, encourage such terrible conduct which destroys the hard-won reputation of this ministry and Ghana's foreign service. The Honorable Minister at the time, the Honorable Shelia Yokobuchi, did not authorize this. There is no documentation, no paperwork. We have combed all the files, both at headquarters and at the mission in Washington, and there is no authorization for this unconscionable contract. If this contract had come through this ministry and gone through our legal department, our lawyers here will have raised these matters. That you can't sign a contract like this. No termination clause, no duration, no prices, no figures. The almighty systems engineer can engineer any figure and do whatever he wants.
That's some troubling detail, proceeding from someone who talked about there. Now we are hearing EOCO is investigating this matter. How do you expect things to play out in the coming days? Quickly, before I let you go.
First time since the period of the revolution that a former minister is refusing to return to Ghana to face his accusers. So we've seen a lot of corruption in the past administration, and I'm surprised. So if you look at Kwarteng's case, if there's a contract, where is the term of reference of that contract? If there's no duration, there's no termination clause, and then Kwarteng is being, asked to face the book in the interest of Ghanaians and the service, and then the former ambassador is trying to come in thinking that she might be implicated, then that's serious, very serious. So I think that I agree with the minister now that they should investigate this matter and then bring the person who was involved in signing the contract, where at the terms of conference, we don't have them, the terms of reference rather, we don't have anything that terminates the contract, we don't have any duration of a contract, so what kind of contract was it? And these are the questions that legitimate thinking Ghanaians should be asking. And I think that not only should we come to the media and then talk about some of these things, but we should prosecute those individuals and then to serve as a deterrent to others. Because you look at the money involved in this contract and visa fees that Ghanaians were paying, go to the embassies, including the US embassy, and see the dilapidated resources out there. And Nkrumah built all those embassies. And since then, various governments have not taken good care of our embassies. they are also not making the money to be self-sustained. So we are using money generated in Ghana to be paying those people there. And I think that we should be watching very well our foreign embassies and what they contribute to the development of Ghana.
And I appreciate your thoughts. Thank you. Professor Enoch Ntwi is a governance expert and also one-time lecturer over 20 years experience lecturing in a number of universities in the United States, a former president of Ghanaians living in Ohio in the United States of America. Thank you very much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. And there's more of this and some of the things that some of the Blackwater, the former First Minister, said on 3news.com and then also on TV3 Ghana on our Facebook page. So make some time and get on in there. We're going to go for this quick break. When we're back, we'll tell you the latest on the COVID cases on the University of Ghana, Legon campus. Stay with us. Welcome back. The University of Ghana has described as untrue claims that official public events of the university have been cancelled due to the new cases of COVID-19 recorded in the past few days. In a statement released earlier today, the university authorities clarified the kind of gatherings that have been restricted, essentially. So they go on following this recent advisory issued by the university. They say management wishes to clarify that the restriction on social gatherings pertains solely to student activities, as clearly outlined in a prior notice issued by the Office of the Dean of Student Affairs, announcing the suspension of all student social events, like the hall weeks and so on. The university community is hereby informed that all scheduled official university events remain unaffected and will proceed as planned, with appropriate health and safety protocols in place. And these scheduled events include the inaugural lecture taking place, that took place earlier today, and the climax of the 2025 Day of Scientific Renaissance of Africa, DSRA, scheduled for Friday, that's tomorrow, the 27th of June, 2025. Management encourages all members of the university community to comply fully with the prescribed COVID-19 safety guidelines during their participation in these events. That's signed by Dr. Lesia Ameyao Brunya, the Director of Public Affairs at the University of Ghana, Legon. There's more of this on 3news.com. On behalf of the rest of the team, we want to say thank you so much for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. We're back again tomorrow for another conversation. My name is Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint, superior durability.